Hey everybody, welcome back to Clipboard Cars. Today I'm going to give you 10 tips when shopping for a Jeep Wrangler JK. Now the JK was introduced in 2007 and ended production in 2018. There are two different versions of the JK. The first year range is from 2007 to 2011. The second one is obviously 2012 to 2018. The main year to avoid when shopping for any of the years would be the 2012 model, and that was when they first introduced the 3.6 liter Pentastar engine. For whatever reason, that particular year had a lot of extra issues with the engine. I don't know why, but that's just the way it was. Typically the interior. They updated the whole interior for 2011 and newer, which means 2011 is the outlier here. So if you see a vehicle that has the updated interior but has the older engine, which is the 3.8 liter V6, obviously 2011 would be the year for that. So if you're looking at a 2011 thinking you're getting the 3.6, you're not. The next thing you want to consider is what trim level of Wrangler do I want? There are three to choose from. There's the Sport, Sahara, and Rubicon models. The Sport model is your bare bones, not a whole lot of fancy frills or anything going on with it. It's an ideal vehicle to get the cheaper price point if you're looking to heavily modify the vehicle and gut the axles and transfer case and all that kind of stuff. But if you're just looking for a cheap vehicle to have fun on the weekends with, the Sport model is also a good one for that. Again, light off-roading, nothing extreme. Drop the top, take the doors off, have a good cruise. Sport model is pretty good. But if you're looking to have some more creature comforts and a little bit more flash and flare with the style, the Sahara is a good model choice for that, where you get the painted fenders, the painted hardtop, leather seats, I think a bit better sound system. Again, that's basically all you're getting. It's still a Sport, just with a little bit of lipstick on it. But if you're looking to actually have a good experience going off-road and tackle some more harder trails, the Rubicon is definitely the choice to go with, where you get Dana 44 front and rear axles, you get electronic lockers, which lock the differential so all four tires spin at the same time when you're off-road. You get a 4-to-1 low range transfer case, which helps really get the Jeep to dig in and climb up those obstacles or go down the obstacles without using the brakes. The Rubicon is the ideal choice Wrangler to get if you are looking to go off-road. But again, if it's not really the main point, you're just looking to have a top-down fun cruising vehicle, a Sport or a Sahara would be an ideal choice for you. But again, off-roading is the main reason why we want to buy these, or give the illusion that we want to buy these. The Rubicon is definitely a good choice. Should I buy a stock Wrangler or should I buy a modified Wrangler? That's up to a lot of subjectiveness with how good the build is that you're looking at and the price tag that you're looking to buy it for. Preferably, I look to buy the most stock vehicle I can get my hands on. So if it's a bone stock Wrangler, that means any modifications, anything that I do to the Wrangler, and if it were to still mess up on the trails, it's my own fault. Or if it falls apart on the road, I can only blame myself. I know everything that's going on with the vehicle. It's a blank canvas to start from. It's your own creation at the end of the day. When you're looking to buy a modified Wrangler, there's a good rule of thumb in the used market that I've learned over the years, where typically you take 25% of the value of the mods that were put on it. That is how you incorporate that into the price tag. Now that's subjective. Everybody's got a different opinion on that, but that's roughly where I see most of the resale value at for modifications when you're putting them on a Jeep. But they have to be tastefully done modifications. If the Wrangler that you're looking at has a really far out there wild design that not many people like, that'll also tank the resale value of it as well, because you really have to find that specific customer that also likes it. But say you do want to go the modified route and you see a Wrangler that's already lifted and looks like it's all ready to go, really do your homework on the modifications that are done to the vehicle. Check to see if the suspension is a reputable brand name, because suspension is a big deal. It's what supports your vehicle and helps you with off-road performance. There's a lot of safety issues around the suspension, so make sure it wasn't installed incorrectly, or if it has cheap components. Not saying it's gonna put your life in jeopardy, but I would prefer to have the safety and security knowing that a proper suspension was put on the vehicle and it was installed correctly. Now, I'm not knocking buying a modified Wrangler by any means. Just do your homework first, because it can be a cost-effective way to get yourself into a really awesome off-road rig for a lot less money than doing it yourself. And it saves you time and headache too. Again, that's if the vehicle is done correctly, or if you see it's done correctly enough and you can make the changes yourself down the road. There's a lot of ways to look at this. Next thing when looking at a Wrangler is being able to take the VIN, pull up a Carfax on it, check the history, check how many owners the vehicle had, check the sales of how the vehicle was sold. If it was sold to an auction yard and then they couldn't even do anything with it at the auction yard and it got really dumped off at a cheap price, odds are that there's something very wrong with that Wrangler. You might want to steer clear of it or get a really good deal on it and just have a whole chassis to just completely gut the whole thing and rebuild it yourself. Just depends on the price point that you're getting it at. Next, and this is going to depend on the dealership or the private party that you're buying the vehicle from, and that is being allowed to pull the carpets up in the front and back seats. This is a way to test and check if there is a puddle of water under the carpets or if there's a lot of moisture that's built up. If that's the case, more times than not, there's a lot of rust on the floor pans, and it's just a good thing to check for. Now, a way to check it is that on the front two seats, say on the driver's side, there are two screws behind the gas and brake pedal. You unscrew those, pull them out. The whole carpet literally just slides forward. It's very easy to do, so you can get to the drain plugs. But that's just a very quick way just to check, like feel around if it's wet or anything like that. That's going to be an indicator that moisture was an issue at one point. The top was off, they let it get flooded, all that kind of stuff. When it comes to moisture and all that kind of stuff, this brings me to my next point, which is checking for rust under the body. There's a lot of different ways to look for this. Obviously, the frame being the biggest chunk to look at. Surface rust is one thing that's not something to be too worried about, but wherever you see the surface rust, if you're allowed to take a small hammer and give it a couple taps, make sure it still feels solid, or if they don't let you take a hammer to it, wear some mechanics gloves. Just reach your hand up there, give it a couple of knocks, and feel if it's like kind of giving or anything like that. Rusty frame is just gonna make for a very, very bad time down the road. Critical spots to look for rust would be on the control arm pockets, the track bar pockets, things like that, because if you have those being really rusty and you hit a bump really hard and that whole thing just shears off, then you lose your control arms. That's just gonna make for a real bad day. Another thing to look over would be the axles. Now the axles can also get really rusty where you can have the axle seals fail and then the rust builds all the way up the axle shaft. Eventually you'll have axle shafts that just eventually snap and fail just on their own, not even going hardcore off-road. The next thing to do when you're at the dealership or with a private party is ask, has the hard or soft top ever been opened or removed? Odds are at this point in time, since the JK Wrangler hasn't been made since 2018, I'm gonna make a blanket statement and say all windshield seals need to be replaced on all JKs across the board. It's a very easy process to do. It's a very inexpensive seal kit that you can buy online. Maximum, I think you're spending like $100. And it's just replacing all of the seals just by sticking on fresh ones. The reason why you wanna ask for that is moisture. Water is Jeep's biggest enemy for the interior and the frame. So when you have bad seals, if it rains, you power wash it, go through a car wash, anything like that, water dumps in through the A-pillars or actually anywhere on the hardtop where there's a seal, water just likes to dump right in there. And eventually you have water that builds up under the carpets, moisture, rust, you lose your floor, fun things happen. Next is a very common thing that you'll hear for any vehicle that you're shopping for, and that is checking for any sort of leaks or sounds coming from the engine. Spots that I like to look for with oil leaks and all that kind of stuff would be the rear main seal where the transmission meets with the engine, as well as the oil filter housing on top of the engine. Other things to look for would be transmission lines leaking, and that's more common in the 2007 to 2011 year ranges. Numerous Jeeps have been caught catching on fire just at random. One of mine being one of those examples from back in the day. Again, reverting back to axles, check the housing, see if the differential has a wet base to it. Odds are it's got a slow leak going down there, as well as the axle seals. You'll see axle fluid just dumping out the side. This next point is a very common one with any vehicle, not just Jeeps. That's make sure you test drive the vehicle. That's a very no-brainer thing to do, but test drive the Jeep, drive it over some rough railroad tracks, drive it down a rough road if you can. Just see if you can shake anything loose that might possibly be loose on the Jeep. If it comes back good, hey, you might have a solid vehicle. Also really test the brakes, understand if those are a little too spongy or not. Sometimes these lines rust out really bad and you end up not actually having any brake pressure with the fluid. Not a fun situation to be in, but when I test drove this one, that was the issue. So every Jeep has an evap canister. From 2007 to 2011, they weren't protected with a skid plate. So one of the things you're gonna wanna do on that generation of Wrangler is peek underneath, see if there's any small hairline fractures on that plastic canister housing, and just address that if it does need to get replaced. Odds are at this point, I would say every evap canister would need to be replaced on an 07 to 11 Wrangler. The thing is though, is if that does get a puncture in it, the entire system on the Jeep, it shuts down, it will not start because it needs that to function. You can locate the evap canister on the driver's side of the Wrangler closer to the rear wheel. All right, so my last tip for shopping for a Wrangler is when you're test driving the Wrangler, make sure you take the four-wheel drive shifter and shift through all the settings. Make sure that obviously it clearly engages in two-wheel, four-wheel, and four-low. Make sure it all works. The other thing that you're testing when you do it 3 to 4 times is the actual linkage strong enough, or has it been replaced? If it does it 4 or 5 times without any issues or flaws, someone's replaced the linkage at some point in time. There's a little white plastic grommet that goes right in that connects the linkage, and over time with heat from the transmission and just in general, it becomes very brittle and crumbles and falls apart, and then you eventually you have no linkage for shifting between two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. You'll be stuck in whatever drive you're in if it were to happen. It is an easy fix. It's just an annoying fix because you gotta pop up the center console, push in the new linkage, and you're good to go. Now, if this were to happen to you where that linkage does fail, you can still shift it into two-wheel drive or get it out of four, or if it's stuck in neutral, you still have to pop open the center console. You just have to actually physically push the linkage into the right spot with your finger. That's a video for another day, but again, something to really test out when you're actually test driving one of these vehicles. Thank you guys for checking out this video. I hope it was informative for you. I hope you guys do get involved into the Jeeping because it is a very fun hobby to get into. Whether you're wanting to go off-road or not off-road, they're just fun vehicles to drive. I don't necessarily recommend them as a daily driver, but if you do end up buying one of these as a daily driver, more power to you. If you want to check out my 10 tips for how to modify a Wrangler, make sure you go check that out. I'll link it in the description below. But thanks again for checking in. Make sure you like and subscribe to this channel as we have more Jeep content and automotive review content coming to you in the future.